So I made it to Stony Ridge, Ohio. That's where I'm taking my break at. I picked a load up at over by Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the load goes to upstate New York, Harriman, New York. So I wanted to get here. I've got about 560 miles roughly left to go. So it's very cold here. My truck thermometer said -3. They're saying that it's supposed to get down to -4 maybe for the low with a little bit of light wind, and so it's cool. But I found a place to park, and so I decided just take my break here, and then I should be able to make it the rest of the way without any problem tomorrow. I don't know if I can park at the place where I'm delivering the load in upstate New York. I don't know if they have overnight parking or not, but I'll work it out one way or the other. So, but in any case, it's been cold all across the country. I had a little bit of a surprise. I know people have been kind of burning through their propane. My house at home is on propane, and normally I leave it set on 50 degrees when I'm gone. I've got one of those Nest remote controlled thermostats. Had it, I've got the original model. Had it for a couple of years now. Really, those, I can't say enough good things about the Nest thermostat. It's really simple, and it as long as my network is up, the thing works flawlessly, and it gives me remote control, and that's the biggest thing, is having the remote control. And so I typically do save a lot of energy, because in the summer I set it on 90 degrees, and then in the winter I set it on 50 degrees, and then usually about 24 hours before I go home, I'll either cause the air conditioner to kick in more, or the furnace, vice versa. So I thought that it might be a good idea, even though I have it set on 50 degrees, have somebody check it. So I had the neighbor check it, and he says, hey, it's 15%. And it's not that I don't trust my neighbor, but I decided, well, maybe have one of my younger brothers check it. If they happen to be driving by there, and so he drove by, and yes, it was 15%. So it burned through, even set at 50 degrees. It's been cold enough, and down there where I live in Arkansas, it's been cold enough. There's been enough really cold days and nights to the point where the thing, it burned through. I don't know, pretty good percentage of the propane that was in the bottle, and so today I had to call my propane company, and I'm having them deliver a couple of 100 gallons. I think they were going to charge me, or they're charging me $2.76 per gallon. So it's going to be, the bill's going to be $596 something. I wrote it down. I need to write out a check and mail it to the gas company. That was a little bit unexpected, but hey, stuff happens. She said that when I was talking to the woman at the gas company, it's an older woman. She was saying that everybody's got the same problem. They've been burning through the propane really at a way faster than normal rate, and it's kind of creating a problem. The price, because at one point the price actually in the past couple of weeks, the price was actually went up to $5 a gallon, and then now it did come back down a little bit. So and I have to have it. I can't allow the house to freeze. that would be an even costlier disaster if it actually did run out of propane and the water pipes froze. That's kind of an unacceptable thing that could happen. So decided, nope, can't allow that to happen. That's not going to happen. So just so maybe the 500. If I get the 200 gallons now, maybe it should be warming up, and maybe I can kind of nurse that along and be able to fill it up this summer. Go ahead and fill it up this summer once the price comes back down. Propane, the price has been volatile for years. I've been using propane for years. I'm kind of in a rural area. I'm several miles from the place where the people actually have natural gas pipe. They've got the natural gas piped into their house. And so I don't have that available where I'm at. I'm in a more of a little bit of a rural area, a couple 3 miles outside of town. And that, it's nice being in a rural area. I do have neighbors. Things are more spread out. There's the advantages are that I can kind of do whatever I want to. I got 2.5 acres, but on the other hand, there are some downsides in that you don't, the utilities are just not quite as convenient. For example, the propane. Do have rural water. When I first moved into the place where I'm at now, I had to drill a well. There was enough water if I was very careful with it, but I couldn't do any kind of laundry with it or anything. There just wasn't enough for that. It was reliable, but you could run it out really easily. It would always fill back up, but there was just enough to bathe and to kind of minimally flush the toilets and what have you, but not do laundry. So when the rural water did finally come through, that was a tremendous boon. So at least I do have the rural water, and of course I have electricity. I was finally able to get DSL. I've talked about that in my podcast before. I was able to get that a couple of years ago, and that's really been a big help. I've gone through different things, trying to get internet, dial-up, and then tried satellite internet, which satellite internet is just an absolute disaster. Would not recommend satellite internet to anyone. That's bad. Really poor way of getting internet. It's very expensive and it's crappy service. It's my experience. So it has its downsides, but the upside, of course, is that, as I say, I do have kind of more space, and I can kind of do what I want to, and I don't have, kind of the neighbors or any kind of a city breathing down my neck. Because out in the county, what rules there are far looser than what they would be within the city limits. So, and the neighbors that I do have, I get along with them fine, all of them, no problems there. So, if I was going to move anywhere nowadays, one of the main things that I would make sure that I had would be internet. That's one of the first things I would check on, is making sure that I could, what kind of internet access can I get? That, and a lot of it continues to surprise me that a lot of people, they'll move and then they sort of think of the internet access after the fact, and sometimes they really screw themselves. And the internet access has gotten so important in today's world that that's not something you want to ignore. Internet access is actually very important, and I think it's going to be increasingly important in the future as time moves forward. And and so hopefully I'll be able to get the 200 gallons in and just kind of go along, and maybe we'll have maybe we'll get back to warmer winters. Normally there where I live in Arkansas, we don't have really harsh winters like we've had this time. I think that really the last time we had there was a really harsh winter that I know of was back in the late 1970s. I think around 1979, I think, was a pretty harsh winter there. I wasn't living there at the time, but I had relatives that were. So normally we don't get that much cold weather, and it doesn't stay cold very long if we do. We always do get snow, but the snow typically melts pretty fast. Now, one of the downsides with the milder winters that we have is we do end up with ice. A lot of times if it snows, it's always going to ice. There's always going to be, not always, but a good chunk of the time, a good percentage of the time, when it does snow, there's going to be ice under the snow. And so ice is a little bit trickier to deal with. Arkansas has gotten better about snow removal, and they're still not really good with it, but they have gotten better because back not that many years ago, their idea of snow removal was more like Georgia. What you see in Georgia, the idea, well, we'll just let it melt, and that's the snow removal. And that was the way it was, like in the late 70s and the 1980s, certainly, was just let it melt. It'll melt. And so in the meantime, people couldn't get around very well. But as the population has increased and they've become more sophisticated, and so they do get out there and treat the main roads and what have you. In case of ice or snow, it's not going to be as good as just the neighboring state to the north of Missouri does a better job. But I believe a good chunk of Missouri is in a different climate than Arkansas is. So therefore, that sort of triggers a different response. And as you go to what I've noticed, you go to different states. Now, like right now, I'm in Ohio. I was in Michigan, but Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, these states are very well geared towards snow removal. And so if there's any kind of a problem, boy, they clean those roads up right away. Whereas the farther south you go, the less that's going to be true. That they're just not as prepared to deal with it. Not only the state and the local governments, but people in general. At home, I don't really worry that much about. It would be ludicrous for me to have, like a snow blower, because I would virtually, very rarely have any need to use it. And whereas you live in a state like Michigan or something, or Ohio, you'd better, then you stand a much better chance of using something like that. So anyway, I just wanted to make this little update. I'm going to go ahead and try and see if I can. I'm going to go ahead and try to put up one of these videos every day, and we'll see how that goes. I'll maintain it at least for a week and kind of see how it goes. I'm doing it all on the phone, so everything has to happen on the phone. Because if I have to bring a computer into the equation, then it becomes much more time consuming. But if I can do it all on the phone, if I can make it all kind of happen on the phone, and it seems that it happens in a much more reasonable length of time, and it's not nearly as tedious or time consuming, and it becomes more feasible In other words, if I can do it all on the phone, it does become more feasible. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, I wanted to just make this update. We'll catch you later.